Welcome to Tales from SYL Ranch Live, and I'm Bill Stone. And tonight, of course, we have the usual Lancaster County, Nebraska virus statistics for where I live. Sorry, I'm just hitting the wrong buttons. I'm in the wrong window, hitting the wrong buttons. It happens. Okay, we'll also talk about, and this is a really big one, and this caused me to make some changes this time because I knew this for a long time, but it's hit home because of some stuff that happened last week, and I'll talk about that. But we're going to talk about how social media is, in fact, and this is something that has been published by psychologists and psychiatrists, so we're fairly certain that this is true, that social media is, in fact, chemically addictive, and I think it's frankly destroying Western civilization. We will have a very rare review, a full review of Starship Farragut Homecoming. Starship Farragut is a Star Trek fan film. It's extremely cool. And they released an episode after about 6 or 7 years. So we're going to do a full review of that because I like doing that, and it came out a couple of days ago. It's very cool. You should go watch it. Linked to in my description below. We'll have a brief word about Star Trek Lower Decks and Foundation. We'll talk about what's in the Tales from SYL Ranch Darkroom this week, and pretty much anything else that you want to talk about. Now, I had been intending to do a viewer challenge debunk the press this week, and if you've come for that, I apologize. But between the social media thing that I think is really important and the full review that I'm going to do, which I just want to do, frankly, adding a press debunking would have increased the length of this thing well beyond 3 hours. So I apologize, and I will work it in next week. However, I certainly would beg your indulgence to remain with me this week. I think you'll find that most of the show is probably worth your while. Hey, Jeanette, how's it going? Already modding, catching me on demand. Okay, see you later, Jeanette. Speaking of Jeanette, she is the only individual in my audience who asks the question that no one else asks, which is, yes, what? Sorry, I'm not seeing my. Hang on, what the hell? Static back. Oh, here we are. The question to ask, thank you, Marshall 5x5, is what are the current Lancaster County, Nebraska virus statistics for where I live? Oh, hell, I got so confused here. Hang on. I missed a chunk of my introduction that I always do so that you can do. Yes, where's the stats coming? Of course, this is a live stream, so you are free to talk with me about anything that you want in chat. You can ask me any question, whether it's political, social, the virus whose name I can't say now, without risking my channel not ever being able to be monetized. And I'll talk about that. And that goes right along if you want to talk about this dystopian nightmare that the U.S. is becoming, or even things, frankly, hopefully related to science fiction, fantasy, horror, and superhero genres. Hey, Drop of Truth, what's happening in Nebraska? I'm going to talk about it. There are personal questions that I won't answer, but pretty much anything else is fair game, and I will get to as many of my viewers as possible. Hopefully, my back will hold up. I made a mistake today, and I sat here and I worked on the script and notes for the show for 2 or 3 hours. Bad idea. But if I do things, if I remember to Alexander up, which if you don't know what it is, it's just a way to kind of pull yourself up. If I remember to Alexander up and relax the muscles in my lower back, it will help sometimes. So we're going to hope that that's what goes on. So getting back to the question that only Jeanette asks, what are the virus statistics for Lancaster County where I live? Now, I have sourced this. It is always in my description box below with the City of Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department. Oh boy, I did some math. Some of my statistics are not the same as Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department, and this is because I'm using a far more accurate, and I mean far more accurate, I found out today what they're using, count of the county's population. My county's population that I'm using, if you see it up here and you know it, is slightly lower than what I'd previously been using, and this causes some of my stats to go up just infinitesimally. And it was updated today at 1930 UTC. Our total Lancaster County population that I'm using is now 322,608, and this is about 1,608 less people than I'd previously been using. But I was able to find more accurate data based on the 2020 census. And again, the stats otherwise are still from the stats there at Lincoln, Lancaster County. They're really lowballing it. I mean, I did the math. They are seriously lowballing it to inflate our statistics, and I'll be talking about that because they left me enough information that I was able to use some clues and get down the math on what exactly they're using for the county's population. Oh my God, you'll be amazed at how they're padding this number. Drop 2 says the New South Wales in Australia is collapsing. Wow. The horrific Premier, Gladys, whatever that last name is spelled, and her Vice Premier, the health officer, and others have resigned. Wow. I haven't noticed. I don't keep up on your politics that much. So, wow. I assume this is all due to the virus whose name I can't mention. So, total Lancaster County deaths for this week is up to 291, which is up at this point all of, I'm sorry, I have a poor man's thing here, up 3 from last week. What we had several weeks ago was an uptick, quite a lot, about 10 deaths, down to, now we're going back down to where we were, just a couple of deaths a week and frankly, nothing at some points. Our mask order is still in place until the end of this month. Interestingly, as I mentioned last week, I'm seeing a lot of people not putting on the mask if they can avoid it. If I go down to the convenience store, only 4 blocks away, they don't care at all. And there's some fast food places where they're just like, you're taking the damn thing off when you sit down to eat. What's the point? I mean, really, what's the point? Of course, for comparison, as I always do, the number of people who died of heart disease in 2019 alone is 485, which means that over the entire pandemic, the number of people who died of the virus is only 60%, the number who died of heart disease in only 1 year in 2019. So if this virus is a pandemic in Lancaster County, then heart disease is an ongoing health disaster. Drop 2 says it would seem their bureaucracy have been taking back handlers from the Pfizer, AstraZeneca lobbyists. Just what happened in the U.S., all politicians are corrupt, personally or by association. Well, my saying. They are power-mad, sociopathic narcissists by the textbook definition, and I don't think that's different anywhere else. It ultimately goes back to what Lord Acton said centuries ago. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But if we're going to take heart disease as seriously as the virus whose name I can't mention, we must immediately do the following. For heart disease, we must close all restaurants until they have changed their menus solely to heart-healthy foods and can confirm this via County Health Department inspections. We should close grocery stores and convenience stores until they have changed their products to solely heart-healthy foods and can confirm this via a County Health Department inspection. We should require all citizens to obtain heart disease certificates showing that they do not have heart disease. 4, if they can't provide such proof, they must be banned from all restaurants and grocery stores because there is a risk that even some heart-healthy foods can be problematic for people who have heart disease. We must require all citizens to perform daily exercise. Such exercise will be determined by the County Health Department, and citizens must either obtain documentation from local health clubs or gyms that they are exercising appropriately, or the citizen must be subject to home surveillance monitoring to ensure that they are getting adequate exercise. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in Lancaster County and, in fact, the United States generally. It's far worse. It's far worse than the virus that must be stamped out. We must stamp out heart disease for the children. And if you don't want to do it, you're causing me to have heart disease because you might have it and could get it. The whole heart disease disaster is all your fault. We need to take away your insurance. We need to send you to detention centers. You stupid anti-heart disease wacko. You probably voted for Trump. I hope you die. Red Rom. Red Rom. Okay. Drop 2 says Mafia. The name was an acronym for Mazzini Autorizza Futuri. Instead, okay, I don't know. Mazzini authorized theft, arson, and kidnapping. Well, I'm a libertarian. Taxation is theft. Marshall says Biden will be curing heart disease right after he cures cancer like he said he'd do on the campaign trail. Yeah. Well, I was, of course, joking, but it's exactly like the virus. The total number of Lancaster County confirmed cases is now at 39,221, which is up 551 from last week, which is an increase, but it is a decreasing number over time. The new cases are continuing to decrease. The number of positive cases classified as recovered is now at 32,507, which is up 472 from last week. And it's always good when this number goes up because it means that more people have completely recovered. Of course, I don't know what this recovered means. Does it mean that they fully recovered? Does it mean they still have loss of smell or sense of taste or whatever? I don't know. But given there are only 291 deaths, I guess that leaves about 6,423 people who are in some kind of Schrodinger's cat-style limbo as existing both simultaneously alive and dead. But it's still 76 more people than last week who are now simultaneously alive and dead. The total number of completed vaccinations is 190,995, which is up, 1,071 from last week. We're back to our usual kind of 1,000-ish per week in increases in the number of people vaccinated. Drop 2 says, a bump in the downtrend. Yes, exactly. Yeah. The percentage of population that's been vaccinated is 59.203%, which is up 0.624% from last week. This is one of the statistics which the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department calculations are radically different from mine. They say that 74.1%, as opposed to my 50-ish percent. This is a difference of 14.897%. It is not small. So you can run the math backwards on this, and if you do, you find out that they are using a population for Lancaster County that is 257,753, which is 64,855 less than the real number. Wikipedia lists Lancaster County's population at 319,090, which is also a little off because it's based on estimates from 2020 census. Wikipedia also lists the city of Lincoln, a major city in Lancaster County, without all of our suburbs, at 291,082. And since the city's population is lower because you don't include the suburbs, if you just the city, I have no idea where the county health department is coming up with this insane number of 257,753 citizens of Lancaster County. It's ridiculous. Clearly, they're using bogus numbers to make their statistics look better. But not only that, they appear to have manufactured this number out of thin air. I have no idea where they got it. Of course, tales from SYL Ranch, we know how to do math, and so asks the tough questions that no news organization does because journalists can't do simple math. It is a question of division. It's an easy math problem. Drop 2 says, recovered simply means that they're still alive, not cured or even healthy. I don't know. I mean, maybe Lancaster County thinks of it some other way, but they don't say on their it's not a stupid website. It's reasonably good. So the number of the deaths as a percentage of confirmed cases is now at 0.742%, which is up 0.002%. And again, I'm using numbers that are slightly lower than last week, which should cause these to go up infinitesimally, like 0.002%. It is, as always, this number has been statistically identical for months now. Deaths as a percentage of the population is 0.92%, which is up 0.0032% from last week, brings it out of the 0.08 numbers and brings it up to 0.09. And I think that's a function of the different population numbers I'm using. But it's still infinitesimal. It's still 9/100ths of a percent of our population, 9/100ths. Marshall says, population deflation, yes. Drop 2 says, otherwise known as depopulation. Well, it isn't that here. I mean, I know we're 320-something thousand. That's an accurate number. I have no idea where these jerkwads are getting it. As always, given our statistics where we were, and if you want to look at good graphs, the website does have them, even if they're based on the wrong numbers, but they still have good graphs that show our rate of increase and when and where the vaccine was available and how many people took it. You can tell the vaccine did not have the slightest effect in Lancaster County. Okay. Oh, what? Social. I thought I had that. All right. Well, we're just going to put this on. I thought I had a social media addiction lower third. I guess I don't. Okay. Social media addiction. I've been aware of this since 2012. So in September 2012, Psychology Today, which is a professional psychology magazine. This is not pop culture psych. This is real psychology, real science that they use, not pop culture crap. They came out with this article, Why We're All Addicted to Texts, Twitter, and Google. And I've got a link to it in my description box below. I'm not doing this very much on this show, but I'm just going to read this thing. And hopefully I can kind of emphasize certain parts of it, so some of it makes a little sense. It's not hard to understand. Put on my glasses to see this perfectly. And let's see, the article, Why We're All Addicted to Text, Twitter, and Google, was written by Susan Weincheck, Ph.D., and has been checked by Eruka Hagen, which is also a Ph.D. Drop 2 says, your video resolution is lower than last you were using Brave. Any reason why? It shouldn't be. You ought to be able to if it's coming out as a low resolution, you ought to be able to upscale it. Let me look on my secondary monitor, and I'll find out what it looks like on my own channel side. Darn it, you stupid piece of crap. Okay. Yeah. Let's take a look here. No, I've got 1080p and 60 frames per second in my secondary monitor for YouTube, so I think it's just maybe you need to up the resolution in your web browsers on the window there. 720p where you are? Huh. Well, I'm going out at 1080. I know that. Let me just check my settings. I should be going out at 1080. Output. I don't know, video, yeah. Okay, 1920 by 10. Yeah, it should be going out 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames per second, and I'm seeing that on my phone. I can see it there. That's what it's doing. I think it's related to your own browsers or something. I don't know. But let me go to the article here. I won't talk much of anything to get to my chat before I get the end of this. Here, the article in the Psychology Today reads, do you feel like you are addicted to email or Twitter or texting? Do you find it impossible to ignore an email if you see that there are messages in your inbox? Do you think that you could ignore your incoming email or messages? If you could, would you be able to get something done at work? Well, guess what? You're right. The culprit is dopamine. Dopamine was discovered in 1958 by Arvid Carlsson and Nils Åke Hillarp of the National Heart Institute of Sweden. Now, dopamine is created in various parts of the brain and is critical for a lot of brain functions, including thinking, moving, sleeping, mood, attention, motivation, and seeking and reward. And we're going to get into that one. Marcia says, I see 1080p. Cool. Okay. Now, this is pleasure versus seeking, right? Because there's a difference here. You may have heard that dopamine controls the pleasure systems of your brain. That dopamine makes you feel pleasure and therefore motivates you to seek out certain behaviors like food, sex, and drugs. But recent research, at least research by 2012, is just changing this view. Instead of dopamine causing you to experience pleasure, the latest research says that dopamine causes seeking behavior. Dopamine causes you to want, desire, seek out, and search. It increases your general level of arousal and your goal-directed behavior. Now, from an evolutionary standpoint, this is critical. The dopamine seeking system keeps you motivated to move through the world, learn, and survive. It's not just about physical needs such as food or sex, but also about abstract concepts. Dopamine makes you curious about ideas and fuels your search for information. And research shows that it is the opioid system, separate from dopamine, that makes us feel pleasure. Now, according to researcher Kent Berridge, these two systems, the wanting, which is part of the dopamine, and the liking, which is part of the opioid, are complementary. The wanting system propels you to action, and the liking system makes you feel satisfied, and therefore pause your seeking. If your seeking behavior isn't turned off, at least for a little while, then you start to run in an endless loop. The dopamine system is stronger than the opioid system. You tend to seek more than you're just satisfied. That's evolution again. Seeking is more likely to keep you alive than sitting around in a satisfied stupor. With the internet, Twitter, and texting, you now have the most instant gratification of your desires to seek. You want to talk to someone right away, just send a text. They respond in a few seconds. You want to look up some information? Just type in your request to Google. Want to see what your colleagues are doing? Go to LinkedIn. It is easy to get in a dopamine-induced loop. Dopamine starts you seeking. Then you get rewarded for the seeking, which makes you seek more. It becomes harder and harder to stop looking at email, stop texting, stop checking your cell phone to see if you have a message or new text. Now, interestingly, brain scan research shows that the brain has more activity when people are anticipating a reward rather than getting one. Research on rats shows that if you destroy dopamine neurons in the brain, rats can walk and chew and swallow, but they'll starve to death even when the food is right next to them because they've lost the anticipation and desire to get the food. Although wanting and liking are related, research also shows that the dopamine system doesn't have satiety. It's possible for the dopamine system to keep saying more, causing you to seek out even more when you found the information. How many times have you searched for something on Google, found the answer, and yet realized half an hour later that you're still looking for more information? Unpredictability is the key. Dopamine is also stimulated by unpredictability. When something happens that is not exactly predictable, it stimulates the dopamine system. So our emails, our tweets, and our texts will show up, but you don't exactly know when they will or who they'll be from. It's unpredictable. This is exactly what stimulates the dopamine system. For those of you reading this who are old school psychologists, you may remember variable reinforcement schedules. I don't know what that is. Dopamine is involved in variable reinforcement schedules, which is another reason these schedules are so powerful. Now, the dopamine system is especially sensitive to cues that a reward is coming. If there's a small specific cue that signifies that something's going to happen, that sets off the dopamine system. So when a text or a sound or something is played, when a text message or email arrives, or some kind of visual cue like a heart on a tweet, it enhances the addictive effect. And the dopamine system is most powerfully stimulated when the information is so small that it doesn't fully satisfy. So a short text or tweet, which is only 140 characters long in 2012, is ideally suited to send your dopamine system raging. This constant stimulation of the dopamine system can be exhausting, and the constant switching of attention just makes it hard to get anything accomplished. I mean, can you do something to get out of this loop or prevent it in the first place? One of the most important things you can do to prevent or stop dopamine loop is to be more productive is to turn off the cues. Adjust the settings on your cell phone or your laptop, desktop, or tablet that you don't receive an automatic notification. Automatic notifications are touted as wonderful features of hardware, software, and apps, but they're actually causing you to be like a rat in a cage. If you want to get work done, you need to turn off as many audio and visual cues as possible. It's just the best way to prevent and break a dopamine addiction. Going up, I want to mention what that really means in terms of Twitter, right? Something like Twitter, you post something on it, and even when you post something, you're anticipating this reward. And then if you get like a heart or something like that, it reinforces it. It's just a real addiction. It honestly is. Let's see what my people are saying here. Drop 2 says, dopamine addiction is the reason why people do anything. As he says, the old saying, if it feels good, do it. Yes, exactly. Drop 2 says, dopamine is also associated with adrenaline and activity. Yes, that's also in the opioid part of it, which is the real bad part of it. Once you get these rewards, you kick off the opioid system to make you feel better. So you're constantly seeking, you're constantly getting maybe pieces of it, and you just keep doing it. It is a chemical addiction. Marshall Preston says, that explains why it was so easy for you to leave Facebook. You were seeking intelligence and there was none. Yeah. Marshall has left some of I think he's left all of social media behind. And in fact, that's what I'm going to do. Dropper 2 says, the old inquiry, does a ringing phone have to be answered? In my life, the answer is no. It certainly isn't now. Well, actually, no. He sent everything to voicemail because it's probably a scammer. Scammers that got my number. God, I'm getting too many of those. Marshall says it also explains why you got into crypto. Yes. Dropper 2 says, agreed. Marshall, Facebook is overly emotional and ridiculously opinion. Twitter's just as bad. TikTok and Instagram are work. Oh, God. TikTok is like the Walmart of the internet, you know. Walmart photos are just, well known for people being totally idiots. Yeah. Facebook, Twitter or TikTok is that, my God. Oh. Let's see. Drop it to Drew says the Twitter is always suggesting push notifications, whatever crap. I had that on my Twitter app. I uninstalled it. Anyway, I read the article is written again. It was September 2012. So we have known about this for 9 years. That means, think about this now. That was 9 years ago in 2012 when we noticed this. That means that we have 2 generations now, millennials and post-millennials, who may be hopelessly addicted. They have been addicts from a very young age. Now, how are they going to quit something that's as addictive as an opioid? I saw this in action last week. Oh my God, did I see this in action last week? There were a lot of people in the Star Trek world who were criticizing that week's Star Trek Lower Decks episode because it had a bunch of just totally gratuitous nudity and sex and weird stuff. The people who are big fans of that series, and I have to call them woke, because that is current Star Trek's target market, is the woke. The woke love that. Fans who've been around for a long time that I have say it's freaking gratuitous and has no place in Star Trek. Well, last week, I got into it with a couple of people on that subject. And they were relentless, telling me how I was a prude, how I was a Trump voter, which I'm not, making fun of me because that's all they know how to do. It went on and it went on and it went on. And I think, I have stated before, the problem with, woke Star Trek fans is, what was I going to say? I'm winging it here on this one. Anyway, let's go on. Woke Star Trek fans, it's not like prior fans, right? You could say I could say, oh, I love, I have people I had a viewer. I love Star Trek Voyager. Well, it's not my favorite. And I think there are things that I could criticize about that, right? And I could make a criticism of some specific episode and say, hey, this, didn't work or that didn't work. I thought that was good. I thought it was dumb. But a fan of that will just probably like the whole thing, right? Where I can say, well, not my favorite series, but hey, more power to you if you like it. No problem. Woke fans take it very, very personally. And I think it's due to this dopamine loop. They take criticism of modern Star Trek as a criticism of them personally. Right? It blows my mind, but that seems to be the way they operate. And so what happens is if you say something negative about those, they lose their freaking minds. And they'll come at you and be absolutely, pile on. It's crazy. And you can't talk rationally with them. They take any criticism as something personal. It's different from older fans who could say, okay, well, I like that show. You don't. Okay, whatever. It's not like that now. They take it very, very personally. And when I was thinking about it, I said to myself, here's a pseudo-hypothesis for you. What if the reason they're taking it so seriously is because it's a dopamine loop? right? They expect, they're putting stuff out there on social media the way they always have. And so they're expecting, okay, I'm going to get in my circle of friends, I'm going to get a lot of likes or hearts, stuff like that. And that's going to make me feel good, and I'm going to keep on seeking. What happens with me, because I've been around long enough that I've actually had to deal with bigger a-holes than they are, somebody who had way more than 440 characters. I think it's the dopamine loop that they're caught in. They're expecting to get positive reinforcement from me and never do. It is always some kind of criticism of something they like that they are taking as an internal existential threat against them. Why? Because I'm not giving them that heart. I'm not saying, yes, I agree with you. I'm saying, no, I totally disagree with you, and here's why. And they're not getting that reward. They're seeking, and not getting it from me. I think that that's why they're doing it. It is an addiction to which they are just constantly seeking, because with older fans, they're not getting the validation. And I think that's why they're doing it. It is a function of their addiction, and they're probably hopelessly addicted, because these are probably millennial or post-millennials who are doing this. I think they may be hopelessly addicted. I mean, if you look at just last week when there was that Facebook outage for 6 weeks, look at what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or Red Cortez, as I call her on this show, look at what she did, right? She was off Facebook, which means, oh my God, I'm not getting my fix at all. And when she was, putting things on Instagram and Twitter, you could tell that she was missing this Facebook input. She was not getting her positive, it was not getting her the positive feedback, and she was probably starting to feel some level of withdrawal. Back to my things here. Don't insult Walmart like that. Yeah, I know. Drop of Truth says Lower Decks was almost fun this week. I did not watch it. As a result of, seeing this new episode of Starship Farragut, I went, you know what? I'm just done with it. Let the woke have it. Because of Alex Kurtzman, he got his new contract. He's going to be there for another 5 years. He's not going to do anything differently. It's going to be like this for the next 5 years. I'm done with it. I am, after being with this franchise since 1967, I finally came to that point in the grieving process where I'm accepting. Okay, it's gone. That show, for me, as a good TV show, is gone. And we will not have an opportunity for it to get better, any of those shows, until Alex Kurtzman is gone, which is going to be at least 5 years. I'm done. I'm just done. I'm not going to be watching those shows except maybe offhand. I'm not going to watch it. What's the point? I don't like them. They're not going to get any better. Not until he's gone, or Paramount Plus has gone belly up, which is certainly a possibility, and the franchise gets sold to somebody who knows how to do it. But it's terrible. Anyhow, so I'm not going to I'm not going to be watching those shows, and I didn't watch it this week. Last week was it for me. I'm done. I'm just done. Drop 2 says woke is a system of low self-esteem. Yes. And Marshall says it's also linguistic narcissism, an earmark of the woke left. They assume their language is the only one, and you must therefore comply. Very Marxist, actually. Yes, it is. Drop 2 says, during these lockdowns, social media is many people's only avenue for commentary and justification. Yes. And they're getting, their addiction is, I don't know if we can get them unaddicted. Marshall says, of course, language applies to the telling of stories and the methods thereof, which is what you're speaking of. Man. Okay, I'm having to... Hang on. I'm going to make my chat window much larger so I can see some of these. Drop of Truth says, Marxist is more like the philosophy of Kant and Hegel. Need to read more about the Marx bio. This is right down the alley, is it? The intolerance, the full acceptance, or else mentality, etc. Yeah, and Drop of Truth add philosopher David Hume. Well, in any case, I look at it and I go, this looks... it just went off my head. Ding! The reason that they're after me so much is because I'm not giving them hearts. I'm not giving them that that they're looking forward to the reward, and they never get it from me. And when Facebook was down last week, I then probably hit AOC. She was needing that Facebook input and was not getting it. Let's see if I've got anything else here. Okay. The other thing that's really insidious about this, right? We've known about this since 2012. I am convinced, absolutely convinced, that social media knows about this addiction and they use it. I think that, you'd have to be stupid not to. How do you get to be the size of Twitter, which has more users than what? China? It's a gigantic thing. Same with Facebook. How do you get to that point without knowing this is happening? At least on some level. Maybe they haven't read the article so they understand perfectly. I am absolutely convinced that they have teams in marketing who know about this, have meetings about it, and figure out how best to use it to the benefit of the company, or worse, just worse. They are really no different than your average street pusher who is taking advantage of people who are addicted to something to get tons of money or do some other stuff. And they're doing that here as well. Social media and YouTube and Google use this addiction to change your behavior. Just today, Google and YouTube announced that they are going to cut off ad money for climate change deniers. Google will not permit advertisers, publishers, and YouTube creators to monetize content material that denies the existence of local weather change. The corporate company detailed the adjustments in a doc issued on Thursday. Quote, at the moment, we're seeing a brand new monetization coverage for Google advertisers, publishers, and YouTube creators that can prohibit advertisements for and monetization of content material that contradicts the well-established scientific consensus across the existence of the existence and total causes of local weather change, the Google advertisement staff said within the document. I say this over and over. It's a scientific deal. There is no settled census. There is no consensus. All conclusions from scientific endeavors are always and forever subject to changes and subject to deep scrutiny and criticism, always. Without that, we never find out when we're wrong. Drop As You says most of the Communist Manifesto was written by Joseph Engels, not Karl Marx. Karl Marx, son of Herschel and Henrietta Marx, was born in Germany on May 5th, 1818, and Herschel Marx was a lawyer and to escape anti-Semitism decided to abandon his Jewish faith when Karl was a child. Anyway, this advertisement is going to hit me. There is no such thing as a consensus. There is no such thing as a settled science. And I say this as a scientist. And I know I'm a scientist because it says so on my college diploma, or degree rather. And I did it for 40 years. Let's see. It also says, quote, this consists of content material referring to local weather change as a hoax or a ripoff, claims denying that long-term traits present in the world local weather is warming, and claims denying that greenhouse gasoline emissions or human exercise contribute to local weather change, unquote. The elevated motion in opposition to local weather change deniers marks Google's second massive censorship coverage in the latest days, arriving a few weeks after YouTube censored what they think is vaccine misinformation. It follows new options introduced by Google, the search engine, pushing individuals to shrink their carbon footprints. And I have to think, given this whole dopamine thing, I wonder what happened to President Trump when he was kicked off the site, off of Twitter, because he used that thing incessantly when any normal human being would be asleep. And it's gone suddenly. He may have been an addict. His followers were addicted to him somehow on this dopamine loop. And of course, when we do these virus things, it's very possible that I'll have content that isn't monetizable, even if I was eligible for monetization, which doesn't occur and probably won't. But it does explain, of course, why social media destroys civil discourse in the U.S. And the U.S. and this addiction may well be destroying Western civilization itself. Because if you didn't have this dopamine loop, you would have the incredible minority of woke who are driving a lot of our politics would not be able to communicate with each other. Without social media, they wouldn't be able to do it. The Antifa, who, by the way, we just discovered that the FBI is not tracking them in any way, not even as an organization. But the Antifa and the damage that they cause, again, they would not be able to communicate this without social media. So what is the upshot of this? Dropper 2 says, wealthy Jews, for some bizarre reason, support and promote socialism. Yeah. That's cutting off your nose to spite your face. Cognitive dissonance in a nutshell. Yeah. Anyway, what am I doing about this? What am I personally doing? Well, I'm leaving social media, except for advertising from time to time. You will not see me there otherwise. If you want to interact with me, I do suggest doing so in my comments, because if you put something in social media, I just may not see it. In all honesty, really, full disclosure, I am actually finding it very hard to turn away from social media. Again, it probably shouldn't be too surprising. Marshall quit social media. I don't know how difficult it was for him, but I'm having trouble. I decided to do this a couple of days ago, and I have trouble not going to Facebook, not going to Twitter. I was spending a lot of time on Twitter. That's when I said to myself, when I was thinking back and I read this, I went, oh, dude, you're addicted. Clearly addicted. Time to get out, before it's for the rest of your life. I'm getting out. Drop 2 says Trump is yet another puppet. Politicians are such. Yes, his followers deluded as any other. Remember, Trump pushed Operation Warp Speed. Biden merely continued it. They're all power mad, sociopathic narcissists some way. And Drop 2 says, miss me on Twitter? Yeah. I strongly suggest that all of my viewers turn away from it and quit. But I was spending enough time on there that when I remembered this and realized, because of all these woke Star Trek fans, when I remembered and realized and go, oh my God, this is something that for them is this chemical addiction. And I've been spending too much time there, and I probably have it as well. So I'm really only going to do advertisements there. I still have the Twitter app installed on my phone. If you send me a private message, I'll get some kind of notification on it, even though they say you should take away the notification so that it's a little unpredictable. But if you want to send me stuff like that, anybody can DM me. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm not going to be sitting there on Twitter watching what people do, retweeting stuff, and putting my own things in. No, gone. Just done with it. Johnny Arcade says, I quit Facebook and Twitter 5 years ago. Best thing I ever did. I think that's probably going to be true. I'm not quitting in terms of taking away my accounts. They'll still be there, and I will still do advertising on them, usually the day of the stream, day before the stream, and within 15 minutes of the stream, just so that I'm out there. But I would be thrilled to see all of social media wither and to die, because I think that this addiction is probably making its way through 2 whole generations of people now. Certainly strongly suggest that you quit as well if you can. So, I have a review this week. I have a full review of Starship Farragut Homecoming. My reviews in the past have been pretty short and brief. This one is something that I used to do all the time, and it's a fan film that I've always been very fond of, fan series for Star Trek that I've always been very fond of. So I'm going to do a full review, everything on this one. So, unlike most reviewers, and this is true this time because I kind of go through this introduction and haven't been able to say it all, but unlike most reviewers, I do not sit down and rehash the plot, pausing to say what I liked or I didn't like. You will find lots more depth in this review than any other reviewer, because I touch on everything that goes into making a film or a TV show. So we will just take it as read that if you come to this video looking for a review, you have already watched Starship Farragut Homecoming, or you don't care if it's spoiled for you. But in any case, we should probably issue a...
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. All hands, prepare for incoming spoilers.
Yes, it is a spoiler alert, and that is because I am a secret master of fandom, and that means that the fandom is strong with me. This isn't really a boast or a brag. This is just where you find yourself after having watched, read, and listened to over 100 years worth of science fiction. The problem with us secret masters of fandom is that we're cursed. We cannot just see the new stuff without seeing the entire century that came before. And we realize that there isn't that much that's really original, and it often interferes with our ability to enjoy things. There were predictable parts of Starship Farragut's episode for me, but it was still enjoyable because of what it is to me. One thing I don't do is outrage reviews. There are a lot of reviewers who are simply actors portraying outrage because outrage sells after they found that out with The Last Jedi. They hate everything with a knee-jerk reflex because their viewers want to see them hate things. But this causes a weird feedback loop between fans and popular reviewers where ultimately nobody likes anything. But I don't do that. If I like something, I'll say why in detail. If I don't like, I'll say why in detail. But I don't do outrage. Unlike the other reviewers, I am the adult in this particular room. Let's see. Drop twos. My followers on Twitter enjoy intelligent discourse, a rarity. Yes, exactly. Drop two says, put it on my other channels with a detailed breakdown. I think the other channels, this Tales from SYL Darkroom, is just going to stay with kind of, experimental stuff. I probably chop this out and make it its own, video for review. I'll probably do that. So, Starship Farragut. Released a new episode a couple of days ago. Oh my God. This was the first episode of Starship Farragut in 5 years. I had really thought that with the Paramount CBS Star Trek fan film guidelines, Starship Farragut was pretty much gone forever, but hell, it turned out I was wrong. Homecoming, this episode, is the finale of the Starship Farragut fan series, but believe it or not, a sequel series that takes place during the era of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, called Farragut Forward, is in pre-production. These are the guys who first made those amazing sets that you see on Star Trek Continues. These are the guys who made that. They shot that on sets just like this that were incredible recreations of the one that you see in the original series. If they're doing a fan series, film series that's going to take place in that era, that means they're going to have to build the bridge from that era again, like they did with this. I can't wait. Now, it's in pre-production, and with a fan film, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it soon. It could be 2 years before it comes out, because fan films have to be financed a completely different way. It's part of the reason this one, believe it or not, took 5 or so years to come out. Great background this week. Drop Tuesday. Yes. Well, this is my. This is one where I'm going to do reviews of Star Trek stuff. You know, I've done this. I got 2 of the Star Trek: The Next Generation bridge, but I haven't had occasion to do that. But so anyway, we may not see Farragut forward anytime in the near future. But if Starship Farragut proves anything, it's that these fans have serious convictions. Now, Starship Farragut first premiered its first episode in 2007. So over the past 14 years, it has done live action, an animated series, and has a comic book. This makes this thing the most robust fan series ever undertaken. I love Star Trek Continues, and it's kind of a sister show to this. The Farragut films actually first produced Star Trek Continues. And Vic Mignogna, who plays Captain Kirk in Star Trek Continues, actually first played him as kind of a come and go, just a cameo in Starship Farragut. So, and this is the thing, right? This is why it came so long. The footage for Homecoming was actually shot in 2015 and 2016, And things just stalled in post-production for years. But then musical composer for the episode, Steve, got to look at his last name, Steve Semmel took over as the post-production supervisor, and things started to move forward again. The fact that this footage is old enough and this film got made is kind of amazing. Farragut Forward is again going to jump forward about 20 years from this episode of Homecoming. Starship Farragut, as I said, built the sets later used by its sister series, Star Trek Continue. Vic Mignogna first appeared as Captain Kirk in Star Trek Farragut before Star Trek Continues, and he directed several episodes. Those, frankly, are the best episodes of Starship Farragut. We are dealing here with fans. They are not professional actors, and in my review, I am going to give them a complete pass on their acting. These are fans doing what they love and doing a really good job of it. If I got a chance to play captain of a starship, I don't know how good an actor I would be, but by God, I'd jump at that. I'm going to give them a pass on their acting. Some of the performances are good, some of them not so good. Places where it's bad, frankly, but I'm giving it a pass. These are fans doing what they love, and they're not professional actors. When Vic Mignogna directed their episodes, I think he got some of the best performances out of them. I think as a director, because he was an actor, he knew how to coax better performances out of them. That's not the same director here, not to say he's bad. I'll get into him. But again, I give him a total pass. Why would you sit and bitch about their acting, their fans doing what they love? Total pass on their acting. So the writer on this show is Paul Sieber. If I got that right. Yes. He has 43 actor credits with multiple fan films. Make sure I'm doing the right one. Yes. He played the role of Henry Prescott in 3 episodes of Starship Farragut. Not this one, I don't think. Played Prescott in the Starship Farragut, the animated series. And he played Prescott in Star Trek New Voyages Phase 2. He's also done quite a number of other non-fan films. He does have only 1 writer credit, but that actually devolves to story idea, screenplay, and written by credits for 5 episodes of Starship Farragut, including this one. And like all of these, none of these people, there is one that I'll talk about, but except for one, no one has won any awards. Again, these are fans doing what they love. They're not going to win awards for for anything. Not to say the writing is bad here. In point of fact, I think it's very good. It's hampered a little bit, and this is the only thing I'm going to say about performances. It is hampered a little bit by the fact that some of the performances are not that great. If it was a bunch of professional actors doing this, I think it might be a little more impactful. The writing, however, is very good. It keeps a level of suspense. You don't have these crazy battles and stuff. This is traditional Star Trek episode. It's the script is great. Go watch the thing, for God's sake. If you're a Star Trek fan of any kind, go watch it. This was intended, to be the finale of that fan series, like 5 years ago. That's when it was intended to come out. It's also hampered just a little bit by that, because one of the things that happens, spoiler alert, one of the things that happens in the show is that the Starship Farragut is retired, it's decommissioned, in favor of a new Miranda-class starship named Farragut. It also is a little bit hampered just by the fact that it came out so long after all the other episodes. The end of the episode is Captain Carter kind of going around the bridge, looking at everything and remembering things, and then leaving, getting on a travel pod and going to the new ship. If that had occurred, within a brief time period after their last episode, then I think it might have been more impactful than it is now. Maybe if I went back and watched all of the episodes in order and then got to this one, it might be more impactful emotionally. Drop 2 says, where is the best place to download HD Star Trek Farragut? YouTube? You can get 1080p out of it. I don't know if they've got it on their website. I use a program called 4K Video Downloader, which is available for Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. you just drop a URL for a YouTube video in it. Boom, you get it. You have the option to pull it down in really large. If it's a video in 4K, just make sure you switch to MKV files rather than MP4. MKV files, it'll pull down really high definition. MP4, it only goes up to 1080p. But I pull down stuff from YouTube all the time if I think there's going to be any chance whatsoever that YouTube might pull it. I pull down the Project Veritas videos. I tend to pull those down. There are others that I pull down, but 4K video downloader will do it great for you. So, as I said, this is. Oh, well, let me talk about it now. I don't have it in the darkroom this week, but I'm going to talk to, because he's responding to the comments on the video, I'm going to talk to the brains behind this and ask him if he minds if I take the opening credits sequence and turn it into 4K at 60 frames per second. I'm going to just ask him because I'd like to do that for the darkroom. Again, the writing here is good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a moving story. The only reason it suffers from anything is a little bit the performances and the fact that it came out so long after the last episode. The director is Scotty Whitehurst. Scotty Whitehurst has 26 acting credits. He has one in post right now. He's been in numerous fan films. He played a crewman on Starship Farragut, the episode The Crossing, played a crewman in Star Trek Continues, and played the very key role of Billy in the Star Trek Continues episode Divided We Stand. Go take a look at that. He was a pivotal character in that, and he gave a good performance. He also played Ensign Sims in Star Trek The Romulan Wars, all of which are fan films. He has 23 casting assistant to direct credits. That's probably because he was intimately involved in some of these things. And so everybody on fan films, people wear a lot of different hats. If you look in the credits for this one, you're going to see the same names repeatedly because you wear a lot of different hats. People do all kinds of different things because that's the nature of fan films. I recognize this kind of thing because, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was once an actor, and I did some summer stock work, and the same thing happened. Everybody does a lot of different hats because you have to if you're going to get it done. Jeanette says, my work is over. How is everyone doing tonight? Good night to see you again, Jeanette. You missed the stuff about the dopamine addiction to social media and how you need to get off social media and how I'm getting off social media. And we're into a review of Star Trek. I'm sorry, I keep getting that wrong. Starship Farragut, which is a very good fan film series. Scott Whitehurst also has 6 directing credits, including Dreadnought Dominion, which is a fan series, and with the episode Haunted. Again, he's won no awards, nobody has here. His direction is good. I like his direction. When he's on the Farragut, as with the set designers, which I didn't write down, but the production designers, they recreated, this set, right? Totally recreated it. And so a lot of times the director is recreating shots, the type of shots, the movement, the places, the camera and all that was done in Star Trek, the original series. It's more an homage, right? They're just saying, okay, we want to make this look like Star Trek, the original series. So they duplicate those camera angles and all stuff like that. His direction is real good there. There's something with special effects that I'm going to talk about in a bit, but his direction is fine. The only thing that you might say that maybe he wasn't that great at is getting out the best performance from his cast, and that's a tough row to hoe when you're with fans. Sometimes there's a fan who's sort of talented. I hope I would be, and sometimes you get people who just can't act. But they want to be in this thing. They're doing a lot of work. And you say, okay, yeah, we'll take them. So it's a tough row to hoe when you're trying to get the best performance out of total neophytes, right? Somebody who's nothing about acting. It's tough to do. All I can say is maybe in places it would have been nice if he'd been able to get that out. But, not everybody's Vic Mignogna. And, He knows from long years and decades of experience how to get it out. I don't hold this guy, but he sure looks young. Danette says, you'll check later. Cool. Drop 2 says, you had the jab for work. Oh, good. Didn't get the experimental mRNA, but the AstraZeneca, which is more traditional vax. Your daughter in Brazil got the Indian Covaxin. Okay, also traditional vax. I haven't had to get it, so I'm not planning to. The director of photography is Wayland Strickland. He has 5 cinematographer credits, multiple fan films, 2 episodes of Starship Farragut, 1 of Exeter Trek, which is another show about the USS Exeter, Star Trek, this is a word I have to look at, Elokamin. I have no idea what that is or if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm going to have to go look for it. He also has 5 editor credits in multiple fan films, 1 episode of Starship Farragut. He did Exeter Trek, 1 episode of Trek Isolation, yet another fan film, and Star Trek Elokomin, I think. Again, no awards here. The cinematography, it's always difficult to separate cinematography from a director, from directing. You know, if they're doing the jobs right, they are, the director will say, I want this shot. And the cinematographer will say something like, I can get you that shot. No problem. What if we do it slightly differently? Change the camera angle, change the lighting, stuff like that. What if we do it slightly differently? And maybe that'll get even more of the emotional reactions you want. And if they're doing their jobs right, they're sort of in this together, and they make a much better film because of it. The best example I can say of this is in Superman from 1978. The director and the cinematographer, I'm familiar with their other work, and they are clearly working very closely together, and it makes that movie that much better. Now, I can't tell here. I cannot separate cinematography from directing. I don't know which is which. I can say, that the traditional things, the camera angles were good. They were, there's nothing wrong with the way it's filmed. There's some sections that come under the heading of special effects that I'll talk about that I don't know were their fault. Maybe the cinematographer was doing the best he could, given what limitations he may have been under. That part of the cinematography is not nearly as good as the rest of it. So again, I have no problem with the cinematography at all. And again, it's hard to separate the cinematography out from the directing. So I a little sometimes at a loss to say about what to say about it. I guess one of the things you can say is, along with the lighting director and all that, when they're recreating shots that were used in Star Trek, the original series for Star Trek, Starship Farragut, it's all lit the same. If you go into the captain's quarters, it has that one green light that's along one wall, just like it was in Star Trek, the original series. So all of that's going well. Let me get into the cast. The cast, as Captain John Carter, I always get a kick out of that name. John Carter, if you're not aware of it, is the hero in a whole series of books by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And I'm sure they know that. And so the captain of the USS Farragut is Captain John Carter, played by John Broughton. He has 5 actor credits. He's in all episodes. These actor credits break out because you get 1 credit and made multiple episodes of a TV series. So he's done, of course, all the episodes of Starship Farragut, the animated series, all is John Carter. He also was in Trek Isolation, another fan film. Go look up Star Trek fan productions on Wikipedia. It's got a pretty good list, and it's really amazing. So many people. I've said in previous ones that I hate modern Star Trek, and I want to get away from having to review it. And I thought maybe one of the ways I can do that is start to focus on fan films. The ones that are doing, frankly, Star Trek right. They're not, showing us a dystopian future. They don't have whiny crybabies who are not professional space explorers or professional astronauts or anything like that. These are people who get what Star Trek is about. All of these fan films get that Star Trek is a hopeful vision of the future. They don't go around cursing all the time. It is made up of professional space explorers who don't go around. I mean, you can have things where people, get emotional and cry and stuff like that. but you don't do it constantly, for God's sake. Hang on a second. I got to move his picture back underneath something so I can move my arms. That's what modern Star Trek does. That's what Kurtzman's Star Trek does, and it's just awful. And the fan films get it. The fan films totally understand the tone and what they're going for, and what the original series, all of the franchise of Star Trek from 1966 to 2005, they get this tone. They understand what Star Trek is supposed to be about. And that hack fraud Alex Kurtzman and his gang of character assassins have no freaking clue. It may be that I just say, screw it. I am not going to review that crap anymore. I'm probably not even watching it. If I do, it will be in passing. Maybe I can just review some fan films because they get it. They totally understand. Jeanette says, sorry, Bill, what is a fan film? Oh, okay. The best example I can give you is if you're at all into Star Trek, the original series, watch the series on YouTube. It's on here on YouTube, totally free. Star Trek Continues. That is a fan series. It was created entirely by Star Trek fans. They are doing everything. They build the sets. And amazingly enough, this fan film built the set. It is an exact recreation of the bridge set from Star Trek, the original series. An exact recreation. I mean, I've been looking at that thing for over 50 years. I know damned near where every button is located on every station. And they did too. They have perfectly recreated it. And that these sets that they made went on to be used by Star Trek Continue, which in my opinion is the best fan film out there. And it's probably because Vic Mignogna, who's the brains behind that series, is a professional actor. And so he has acting friends who are in it, and he knows who to get for some of the really good special effects that they've got. And so for me, that's the best one. But again, the deal is these are totally fans. Star Trek, Starship Farragut, totally fans. There are no professionals involved in this. They built this themselves. They built all the sets that look exactly like Star Trek, the original series, themselves. They did all of the acting themselves. They do all of the costuming themselves. They do all of the makeup themselves. They find people who on the internet, there are a bunch of them, who for fun do animated sequences, CGI sequences of Star Trek, the original series that look amazing. And they'll find those guys and say, hey, come over and do some for us. All fans. The thing is, they cannot be paid. In any way, cannot be paid. If these films are ever screened in public, they have to be for free because Paramount Pictures owns the copyrights and the patents on Star Trek. If you do anything like this and get paid for it, you will get jumped on fast and hard by Paramount and CBS. And in fact, because there are so many fan films, Paramount and CBS came out with a series of guidelines. They were afraid, rightly afraid, that some of these fan films are so good that they look exactly like Paramount's product. They were afraid that people would watch these and get confused and think they were put out by Paramount. So they said, okay, here's a bunch of restrictions. And the restrictions damn near killed the fan films. But there was just a golden age of fan films between about 2005 and 2015. Just a golden age of fan films. There are so many of them, and most of them are really good. Now, not all of them have gone to the links. Sometimes they don't have the money because they got to get funding for this, right? They sort of like GoFundMes and stuff like that so they can get donors. So they have to pay for all of this stuff, right? They're not getting paid for their time. That's free. They work for nothing. It's just for the love of it. It's just all for the love of it. It's why I cannot criticize the acting. They're not necessarily that good. But it's fans. How can you criticize that? It's doing what they love. Let's see. Drop 2 says, What If? Season 1, Episode 9 sucked. I watched it, yes. What is the Watcher? Why is the Watcher black? Darth Vader was white, but voiced by... can voice actors only voice people? I don't know. I'm not reviewing that this week. I'm not sure I'll review it ever. That falls into the area of it's owned by that genocidal mouse, and I really don't want to give them any free publicity. And that means the Star Wars properties, the properties that belong to, the Marvel properties, all that stuff belongs to this genocidal mouse. And I don't want to give him much publicity. Jeanette says, thank you. Good explanation. Yeah. Dropper 2 says, you've been drinking natural tonic water with a quinine and zinc substitute label. Oh, okay. It's helped you. Okay. I am not. The show is not about giving out medical advice. If somebody says something in my comments, it's whatever you say. I'm not endorsing anything. So, anyway, what we got here with John Broughton. He is producer. Again, this breaks out to all of the episodes of Starship Farragut, the animated series, which is another thing, Jeanette. There was a Star Trek animated series in the early 1970s, and it was done by Filmation, which was a really, they did a ton of stuff from the 1960s all the way up to the 1980s. They just did a ton of things. They were the original ones who did He-Man, She-Ra, stuff like that. But they also got Star Trek, the animated series. It's very, very good. But it's also got very limited animation. I've tried upscaling that, and it doesn't work because the animation is very limited. The animation, that means that they're not doing 24 frames per second. The average film, TV show, films or shoots video in 24 frames per second. Star Trek, the animated series, couldn't afford to do that. They put their budget into a number of different things to make it look very good, but they could not do 24 frames per second. That would just cost too much. So the animation is limited. Well, what they did with Starship Farragut, the animated series, is not only, in the live action, they recreate all of this. In Star Trek, the animated series, they recreated the whole style and look of the 1970s Star Trek, the animated series. Starship Farragut, the animated series, looks exactly like it. As I say, it's why Paramount came up with guidelines, because they were afraid people were going to, mistake this for their own. And Vic Mignogna, who I already said, he directed some of these episodes. He first appeared as Captain Kirk on Starship Farragut. He's a professional voice actor. He's an actor, but he also does a ton of voice acting. He has done voice acting for tons and tons of Japanese anime that needs translating into English. And if you think about that, that's a tough job. Because these characters are moving their lips to Japanese, just living in Japanese. And so when he gets the script, not only does he have to, do a good performance in the script, he also has to match it up to the movement of the lips that are doing something totally different. So he's a very good, voice actor. When Star Trek Continues first came out, and I was just, oh my God, this is great. It was great from word go. And all the way to the end. The last 2 episodes are awesome. If you like Star Trek, the original series. A word about Star Trek Continues. Star Trek Continues picks up Star Trek, the original series, right from where it left off in its last episode, and then goes through to the end of the 5-year mission. Because of the way they did TV in the 1960s, they never told you, that you were getting canceled. It just happened. So you didn't get a chance, usually, to write a series finale. So what he's done, Vic Mignogna always said to you, buddy, you are my brother in spirit. He gave me my Star Trek one last time. And he gave us a series finale that we never got to see, and it is brilliant. In giving us this series finale, people sometimes ask, what is a TV series about? What's this about? What's Star Trek about? What's Star Trek, the original series, about? Well, because it is, episodic and, doesn't necessarily have these big arcs or anything, there's not really anything you can say about it exactly. But because of this series finale, it was unintentional, because I've asked Vic. What he unintentionally did was create a series arc for Star Trek. And what the answer to what is Star Trek about, Star Trek the original series, the answer is Star Trek the original series is about human beings and how they deal with aliens that are so far above humans that they might as well be gods. Because he puts this arc in there, intentionally or not. So I can now say that. Thanks, Vic. You gave me my Star Trek one last time. Drop of Truth says, the very worst episode of anime series was the Giant Spock episode written by Walter Koenig. Yes, that's... it's like any TV series, Star Trek, the original series, any of them, they have a hit-miss ratio. Some episodes are good, some episodes are great, some episodes just suck. You go to the original series and watch Spock's brain, and that's terrible. But then they have something better, So the hit-miss ratio is good in Star Trek, the original series. It's also very good in Star Trek, the animated series, but you have to give you have to forgive the limited animation of the time. But I always say that, in 1970s, Saturday morning TV was a dumping ground. If you could get a show on the air and keep it there, they're just like, okay, put it on. We don't care as long as it's getting in these child viewers. They didn't spend much money for it. Star Trek, the animated series, got more money than other series of that era. But if you look at the 1970s, all of them have this limited animation. You'll never see fully natural animation. You want to see fully natural animation, go watch the Fleischer Superman's cartoons from the 1940s that are on my second channel, Tales from SYL Ranch Darkroom. I have upscaled all of those, sometimes to 4K and 60 frames per second, and you can tell they were definitely doing full animation, 24 frames per second, because it looks beautiful. Okay, so that's about fan films. My gushing over Star Trek continues. If you like the original series, go watch that series. The fans get it. The people currently making this as a professional living don't. It's not about the sets. It's not about the special effects. Sometimes it isn't even about the acting. It's about the stories and the all the tone and all of that. Anyway, I did all of these episodes of Star Trek. God, why do I keep getting it? I keep getting it that way because I trained myself to say Star Trek. In the way that the guy who announced that, Ernie Anderson, used to announce that, it was the next week thing on Star Trek The Next Generation. He'd be like, next time on Star Trek The Next Generation. I've sort of trained myself to do Star Trek, like that. Starship Farragut, he was John Carter. Starship Farragut, the animated series, he was there. He also was in Trek Isolation. I'm sorry, these are the ones he produced. And he was also in produced Trek Isolation, and 6 episodes of Star Trek Continues. These are sort of sister shows. I mentioned, I don't know if you were here, this actor Vic Mignogna, who plays Captain Kirk in Star Trek Continues, first appeared as Captain Kirk on Starship Farragut. It was just a little walk-on, but he first appeared as Captain Kirk there before he went over to his own series, and he knew he was going to do that. He's won no awards, of course. We can't... nobody here is winning awards. They're fans. There's one that got an award, but I'll get to that. That's kind of fun. Again, in terms of his performance, I give everybody a total pass, no matter how good or how bad they are. And because a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I was once an actor, I know what it's like to get these negative reviews. And especially if you're just a novice doing this for the love of it. If somebody sits there and tell you you're terrible, and I'm not saying he is, he's pretty decent, but if somebody's putting there, saying you're bad or giving you bad reviews and you're a freaking fan, come on, man. You're not doing this for fun. Get over it. If they're not doing a great performance, get over it. So because of that, because I want to give no one a bad review in their acting, I'm not actually going to say a damn thing about their performance. Go and watch it for yourself. Some are better than others. And when Vic Mignogna is directing them, he gets the performance out of some of the ones who are not great. I think he's the best director for this series. But in any case, I'm not going to say word one about their performance. I say give it a total pass. Oh, love when I do the long time ago. Yeah, I have several places I do that. Thank you. That's my movie voiceover voice, the movie voiceover guy. I keep hoping maybe someday I will be able to get a voiceover gig. But it's my attempt to copy the voiceover guy. In a world where Star Trek fan films exist. The In a World was a big thing for a while, but he was the guy that did that. I've forgotten his name off the top of my head, but there was a voiceover guy who did that all the time. You constantly heard, in a world where, like that. Drop 2 says, have I seen Dune yet? Yes, I have. I talked about it last week, in fact. My takeaway from that was it's a good adaptation. The problem is it's not fast-paced enough for the viewers of today who are used to tons and tons of action and running around pew-pew. I don't know how it's going to do at the box office because of that. But yes, you can certainly find it. You can find it on the high seas, matey. There's no question about that. As Commander Joe Foster, the executive officer of the Farragut, we have Frank Hernandez. Again, no awards. And I can't say much about anybody's performance. I give them a pass. None of them are terrible. Some of them are better than others, and I'm not saying which. These are fans doing it because they love it. If they want to get, hear about their performances, call me. If you want to have, some positive criticism, call me and I'll talk about it and I'll say, this is what I thought about this thing you did or that thing you did. But in public, no, I'm not going to say anything about it. Again, these are fans who have been with this for a long time. They're working on a sequel called Farragut. I've forgotten what it was. Forward Farragut or Farragut Forward. I've forgotten. They're working on another one that's going to require rebuilding a whole bunch of sets that look exactly like, I assume they're going to build them, that look exactly like the sets from the movies, the original series movies. They're going to make those sets. I mean, it's in pre-production right now, and the way these fan films work, God, it could be a couple of years. One of them had 10 years between the release of Act 3 and Act 4. Because this is all fans. It all gets done by fans. The editing, the special effects, all of it done by fans. And if you can't get them, if they're busy doing their real-life job, then it's going to sit for a while, which is what happened to this one. It was actually shot in 2015, 2016, got held up because they couldn't get all the people to, the principal photography was done, but they couldn't get all the other stuff they needed until fairly recently, and that's why it took this long to come out. Respect Bill, when you like those voiceovers, yeah, a good way to handle it. Again, not saying crap about it. If you want to say, hey, Bill, you want to come direct an episode? I'll go, well, I'll try. And maybe I could get a slightly better performance out of some of the less wonderful ones. But again, fans. Just fans. Doing all of this for fun. Nothing to say about the performance. As Commander, Michelle Mike Smithfield, the Chief Engineer, we have Holly Bednar. She has 3 acting credits, which devolves to all of the Starship Farragut and Starship Farragut, the animated series episodes. She also has 2 producer credits, which devolves to 6 episodes of Starship Farragut and the Star Trek Continues vignettes. If you go look at Star Trek, I'll tell you what you do if you want to watch Star Trek Continues, in all honesty. Go to my channel here. Go look at my created playlists and look at the one for Star Trek Continues, because they released a whole bunch of stuff. Not only did they do all the episodes, they did, as they started up and were kind of getting going, did vignettes, little 5 to 10 minute, episodes. Holly Bednar produced all of those. And then the rest of the episodes are also in my playlist. And in addition to that, Vic Mignogna did, blooper reels. He's got blooper reels for all the episodes. So all the blooper reels, you had the episode and the blooper reels. Sometimes he did a making of, here's us building this set. Here's us doing that. And the making of videos are there. So typically it'll be episode, blooper reel, and then making of, and then go to the next episode, blooper reel, making of. It is, as far as I know, the only comprehensive playlist of all of this stuff that they've done. You can use it, by the way, if you have 4K video downloader, you can just put in a playlist, and it will pull down all of the videos for you. So pull down that playlist. Anyway, she also has one. Holly also has one writing credit. Starship Farragut, just passing through, is a writing credit. She has one of those episodes. She also has many, many positions for Starship Farragut. Just a ton of them. It's one of those deals again. Fans producing something they love, and she's everywhere. You'll see her name in costuming and makeup. She's just everywhere. Clearly, this is one of the things, along with God, I've forgotten his name. The main guy, John Broughton, the guy who plays the captain, is behind this. He created this series. Again, his name is all over it. Same thing with Holly Bednar. Her name is all over this series. She's done a lot of things. Again, not saying anything about her performance. Just nobody gets a performance review. But one of the things that is interesting about this character, I mean, they're all very interesting. One of the more interesting things about this character is she's female. She goes by the name Mike, but she's not trying to be transgender or anything stupid like that. It's just because she goes by Mike. And you may notice she's got pretty messy hair here. The character is somebody who is constantly getting into things engineering-wise, doesn't spend all that much time worrying about her appearance. It's one of the things that makes an interesting character out of her. But again, her name's everywhere. She's one of the people who just did a ton of different things. We also have some other characters. Dr. Rose Carter, John's mother, is played by Sherry Santana. Nothing I could find in IMDb for her. And again, not saying squat about anybody's performance. There are some other characters on here that I'm not going to get into. They're more ancillary. But again, no problem really with their performances. But they're fans. What do you expect? Sometimes it's not perfect, and that's okay. They're fans. Give them a pass. That's what I do. But there were two very interesting ones. Just small roles. One of them blew my fracking mind. There's a character here named Kansas, and he is played by Dick Diesel. Hopefully, Dick, I'm saying your name right. Interesting backstory. I did not know about this guy. But he has a cameo, not a cameo, but a small role here, and I didn't know who he was until I looked him up. Diesel took on a character called M.T. Graves, who is a host at WDXR-TV in Paducah, Kentucky, in 1971, where he introduced weekly horror films. Side note, in the 1970s, maybe the 60s, but I became certainly aware of it in the 1970s when I was growing up. A lot of local stations would have like a creature feature type program. We had one that was in Omaha. I don't remember exactly, but what would happen is they'd have these old horror movies, stuff that was generally suitable for television, and they would have this kind of funny, goofy horror type character. Elvira is a perfect example, right? Somebody had a TV show and was introducing horror movies, and in between would do funny things, and she looked like some kind of monster. Same thing with here. He would had that character for his local station in Kentucky. And in 1972, he took his character to Channel 20 on WDCA-TV in Washington, D.C., and there he created a character that made him more famous, at least not to me. I wasn't around. My creature feature was a totally different show, of Count Gore Duval, which tells you kind of how, off tongue-in-cheek some of these were. And he was a vampire host, kind of like Vampira, of a creature feature in Washington, D.C. from 1973 to 1979, and then after a 5-year hiatus, he did it again from 1984 to 1987. He also portrayed Bozo the Clown from 1972 to 1977, and Captain 20, 1972 to 1987, which was the station kids program host again. One of the things, I don't know for sure about that character, but the creature feature thing, that was a staple. In most markets, somewhere. We had one. I knew there were others. There's one still floating around in Chicago. If you go there, whenever I was going there to visit my kids, they have one. But the other things that they used to have were children's programming thing, local. They would show generally cartoons, Looney Tunes and other things, but they would have a live host. We had Calamity Jane. Calamity Jane was a live host who would do things like that, but in between she would deal with kids. And they had a group of kids on bleachers. And if it was your birthday, they would do special stuff for you. I went there for a taping on my birthday. Very, very fond memory of that. So that may be one of the characters he's talking about there. Again, he was the assistant programming director there as well. So he helped them get a very large collection of classic horror, Japanese monster, and campy 50s and 60s movies before the video era, which this is before home video, so those things didn't exist. So he could show them on his show. The major coup for him was in 1976 when his station, and he was the first to air George Romero's, in its entirety, Night of the Living Dead. That at the time would have been real teetering on the can we show this on television? So he did that. He was also, he also made Creature Feature the first program to be broadcast in stereo in the DC market. He moved to Chicago in 1995 and became the first horror host on the internet when he began Creature Feature, the web program, a sequel to his TV series, in 1998. I suspect it's probably on YouTube someplace. I didn't look. He moved back to DC in 2005 and produced his web series until his death. And he is one of the two people to whom this film is dedicated. Again, one of those guys, we see this sometimes in fan films, where they are able to go and get somebody who did something cool in fanish world and put them in the show. And that's what they were able to do here. He has won awards. He's one of two people have won awards. In 1984, he won an Emmy for Best Children's Program. In 2009, he won the Rondo Halton Classic Horror Awards, the Rondo Statuette for Favorite Host. It was a horror host. It was essentially a life achievement. 2011, he won the Horror Hall of Fame, Horror Host Hall of Fame plaque. Again, largely a life achievement. In 2012, he won the Rondo Halton Classic Horror Awards, the Monster Hall of Fame plaque for Monster Kid Hall of Fame. So that's kind of cool. Again, saying nothing about his performance. He has done a lot of different performances. Obviously, you can see from his IMDb. But, again, no word about anybody's performance, period. Your favorite performance of Jessica Walter was a psychopath fan and Play Misty for Me, a first Hollywood film where a man hit a woman. It's not exactly true. If you go back to pre-code films, prior to the establishment of the Hays Code and later on the Motion Picture Association of America's rating system, you see some really interesting stuff when you go pre-code. Drop 2 says Calamity Jane was also a great Doris Day musical. I'm sure that's where she must have gotten the name. Doris Day is your dad's favorite actress. Your mom can sing all of the songs very well. Yeah, I'm sure she got the name from that, I'm sure. But, probably wasn't copyrighted or anything at that time. That's the show she had. So. Then there was one that shocked me. Literally shocked me. They got Stan Lee. Holy forking shirt balls. They got Stan Lee to play an admiral. I mean, did you ever expect to see an admiral as Stan Lee? Did you ever expect to see him in a Starfleet uniform? He's only on the view screen, but it's Stan Lee. And while this was shot in 2015-2016, because of the release date, this is in fact Stan Lee's final cameo. Suck it, Kevin Feige. Shadow Man, hey, nice to see you. Drop a tooth. Yeah, you're taking a break from Twitter yourself. Good. If you go back and watch what I said about it, it's addictive, literally. I'm getting out. So that was one I never expected. They said, oh, we've got a call from this admiral somebody or other. Oh, okay, we're going to see an admiral. Boom! Stan frackin' Lee. Holy forking shirt balls. His final cameo by virtue of the release date. Freaking amazing. Awesome. Calamity Jane was also Wild Bill Hiccups. Oh, I'm sorry. I gave the name wrong. It's not Calamity Jane. She is Calamity Kate. Her first name actually was Catherine something. She's still around. Apparently, she has been impactful on so many people. They still talk to her about that show on the street, even though she hasn't done it for decades. Anyway, Stan Lee. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. Stan Lee. Holy forking shirt balls. That was amazing. He's got the sunglasses, which doesn't necessarily fit the character, but it's Stan Lee. He always had the sunglasses. That was awesome. That was just awesome. And, of course, he's won awards. I ain't going to go through Stan Lee's resume. I don't need to. Again, I was just floored. It just blew my mind. Stan Lee. Wow. The visual effects supervisor, going away from our actors for a while, the visual effects supervisor here was Steve Semel. He's also the composer. I couldn't find any IMDb entry for him. He's also listed, again, as the visual effects supervisor here. But as always, when you're going to do visual effects for a show like this, there's lots and lots. Oops, I got this wrong. Sorry. No, I got it right. Sorry. Wait, where am I at? Oh, okay. I don't have my bridge behind me. Well, that's stupid. I apparently I grabbed the wrong. I duplicated some of these cards. Sorry. Anyway, there's, as with every film that uses special effects, whether it's a professional film or a fan film, there's an army of people. You know, sometimes it's a single person or two. Here, it's a whole list of names who did their special effects. Again, it's a small army. And the special effects generally are very, very good. You know, it's using CGI, so it can get shots and things and do things. There's a particular shot where they've gone back to their space dock, and a travel pod, which is a real small little, you saw it in Star Trek The Motion Picture. There's a travel pod that takes Captain Kirk and Scotty all the way that big sequence around the Enterprise and then docks with the Enterprise. They used one and did it very cutely. There's a hatch in that neck of the starship. There's a hatch. It's like a sliding door opens, and then you can dock your travel pod, and that's exactly what they did. I thought that was really creative. They do that a lot, and there's some in-jokes. In Star Trek the Animated Series, you saw this one time, a pair of Federation ships that were cargo ships carrying grain. And you look at it, and it looks like a very modular design, like you could put more cargo pods on it and stuff like that. Well, here, the Starship Farragut needs to be towed into a starbase, and they use two of those ships with pulling, with tractor beams behind them. They use two of those kind of ships. You see this sort of thing all the time, where fans will say, "Hey, I know about this one thing. It'd be perfect to put in here." All the time you see that in fan films. Let's see. Never been on Twitter. Jeanette says, yes, don't do it. Yeah, everybody's saying, don't do it. There is, however, I cannot get away with criticizing one thing about it. Because the special effects are, as always, really, really good. Again, you're dealing with fans, visual effects artists who do this for fun and because they love it. So sometimes because they love it, they come up with some really amazing things. And when they do, like they've done here, they've come up with amazing things. Just watch the thing, and say to yourself, my God, all of this was done by fans for fun because they loved it. They spent, I don't know how many hours, days, weeks you would have to spend to get the special effects that they've got here in CGI and make it look good in 1080p. But they do a really good job, except there's few sequences when John Carter is visiting his mother. Oh, my green screen looks better than theirs. Some of the sound mixing was not where it should have been. And so they do a ton. I guess I should have mentioned that in cinematography and direction. They do a ton of location work in this thing. And I think it looks like one of those larger big parks somewhere that has like a state park or a federal park where they have cabins. It kind of looks like that. But that's okay. It's a fan film. What do you think? They're going to go and, start filming in the Redwood Forest, where they have to pay money? No, they filmed where they could. And I have no problem with that. No problem. But there was periods, several sequences, where they're in the cabin and the sound is echoing. They should have dubbed that, really. And then they have these sequences that are done on a green screen in that cabin. And if you can't tell it's a green screen, I don't know what to tell you. Mine looks better from time to time. It looks, I think you can tell mine's a green screen, but there are places where it looks better. And it doesn't mix well with the other scenes that are actually shot in the cabin because the sound is so different. In the cabin, it sounds echoing just a little. They should have dubbed it, as I say. But again, fan film. What do you want? That doesn't happen very often. Most of the time, if they need to dub something, they do. But this took so long to come out, and it was sort of in not development hell, but I mean, all the principal photography was done by 2016, and then everything else had to come later, and it got bollocks up and wasn't until fairly recently that it started moving forward. So, but you don't usually see that. Sometimes when they're in place that echoes, Star Trek Continues is great at this. If you look at their making of and blooper reels for the last 2 episodes, there's an entire scene in a really bad sound stage where the echoes like crazy, and they had to totally dub everything. Now again, this is Vic Mignogna. He's used to doing things with lips, and a lot of his friends were the same way. They'd done this before, so it wasn't too big a deal for them, and it may be just part of that. You're dealing with actors who are fans. Can they dub? Maybe not. And so you could hear this slight echo. The problem was then you'd switch to one of these scenes, one of these shots clearly on a green screen, and there's no echo because they shot it someplace where they had some level of sound absorption. Just got to call out those few little scenes. There may have been as many as 3 very brief scenes, maybe 4 very brief scenes where you could go, oh God, that's a terrible green screen. And I had to wonder why. Maybe, I mean, I would have to think something like, someday I want to get these guys on the show. But I would have to think, if it was me, right? And I'm saying to myself, okay, I suspect maybe what happened is they were shooting in that cabin, and maybe they got some footage for those scenes that just didn't work for some reason. Maybe it was the sound. Maybe they decided the performances were terrible in that first set. So what happens with fan films is they go around and they go, okay, hey, guys, can we shoot in this cabin for like 4 days? We're not going to be able to pay you, but can we take this cabin for like 4 days? And they'll go, well, okay, there's nobody renting it. Week from tomorrow, is that good? And they go, oh my God, we got to get everything together, and and then they show up, and they do their thing, and then what happens is somebody else is where they wanted to do their stuff. So if they need to do another shot, if they didn't get it right when they were on location in that place, then they had to do a green screen. I don't know why they had to do it. That's my suspicion, is that something didn't work in the shots where they actually shot it in this cabin, and so they had to do green screen. Drop 2 says modular design spacecraft. They're ripping off Jerry Anderson's Space 1999. Well, they may have been. That spacecraft, though, comes from the Star Trek The Animated Series episode More Troubles, More Tribbles. So that design predates Space 1999 by several years, I think. Drop 2 is Thunderbirds 2, of course. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Moving on from special effects, which, again, for the most part are awesome. It's just those little pieces of green screen that tend to jump out at you. At least they did me, as being, wow, that was like inserted afterwards. What's going on? Music is credited to the guy who was also, again, you wear lots of hats. So the guy who was also primarily involved in the post-production that actually got this moving from 2016. He also was the special effects coordinator, special effects, what was his exact title? Special effects supervisor, which means that he was telling other people what to do mostly. But again, it's such an army in special effects. How do you attribute one thing to anybody else? Can I put up a giant list of how many, modern films today, if you watch the special effects, you can get literally hundreds of people involved. In fan films, it's going to be a lot less, but there's still like 10 names in there. I don't know what exactly they did, but he was that. And then he was also in the music. Music is credited as score composed, arranged, and performed by Steve Semmel, that guy there, Carl Hayes, and Heterine, Hetoryn, no idea. The music's very good. Sometimes, like the opening titles, the opening title sequence, you can tell they're using synthesized music some places. You can tell synthesized music in other places. But they have one piece that is played as instrumental in some places. One time it's played with the bagpipes. The end credits is the vocal version. So really good. The music is great throughout. Again, sometimes you can tell, okay, they're using, not a full orchestra. They're using some that are synthesized. Yeah, fans doing it because they love it. What are you going to say about that? They as with most fan films, with some of the music cues, they are identical to or very, very similar to musical cues that actually appeared in Star Trek, the original series. Again, it's just saying, okay, let's try to make this, about that. Actually, now that I can do this, I can go back to my bridge. Now that I'm out of that, I had to get out of another picture. So the music's great. I have nothing bad to say about the music. As always, good film music underscores the action and makes it more intense. If you watch Superman from 1978 without John Williams' incredible score, nowhere near the same emotional impact as what it is. I mean, John Williams, I call him Maestro because he was doing work. He did work. He does work that, centuries ago would have been the things that Beethoven would have worked on. The difference being Beethoven was paid by royalties. He had people who paid him from aristocracy, and John Williams gets paid on the basis of how much money a movie makes. But the music, intent, and use is exactly the same. So here it's good. I mean, what I always say is, unless it's a really brilliant score, my general thing is I can tell when it doesn't work. If there's even places in Star Trek where I go, that doesn't work. That's wrong. It does not underscore the action properly. It does not make the action more intense. But here, it's fine. It's good. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It underscores the action. It makes it more intense. Gives the viewer a more emotional response to it. Nothing wrong to say about the music. Yes, then Picard, as you say, Drop 2 says, I agree with Shadow Man that DS9 is superior to TNG. Totally something that's up to you. The Dominion War arc, yes, it was superb. Yes, exactly. TNG got a little silly towards the end. Yeah, and then Picard killed, buried, and peeved on the grave of TNG. Yes, Jeanette, it does. It's made by a guy whom I call that talentless hack fraud, Alex Kurtzman, and his gang of character assassins. Picard, Star Trek Picard, like Star Trek Discovery, and everything else they've got, Star Trek Lower Decks, sucks. It's bad. It looks wonderful. It's got beautiful special effects. When it comes down to stories, it's all about people crying. Not professional space explorers doing their job and occasionally getting in trouble where it's personally difficult. It is crying all the freaking time. It's insanity. It is Star Trek for the woke, and they have hit their target market. I know that from watching social media. I talked about it in the chunk of the show about social media. Forgot what I was doing. So what I was saying. Anyhow, the music is great. That one song that someone composed for this is great. It's used well throughout the thing and in the appropriate places. Sometimes you get one that doesn't work. Even John Williams can make a mistake. In Superman the movie, the flying sequence where Lois is flying with Superman, and you get this inner monologue that you're hearing. Well, the problem was that number, they thought at one time that they were going to get a singer to play Lois Lane. And so they said, oh, John, can you make a vocal number? And so John said, well, I'll do my best. He made this vocal number that was intended to be sung. And then they cast Margot Kidder, who can't sing a note. And so she just had to do the voiceover. I've seen fan edits of that scene that only have the music in it, the orchestral part, and not the stupid inner monologue. It's much, much better. But again, if I can tell if it's wrong. I can tell that's just wrong. It doesn't fit right. And there's nowhere in this show that it doesn't fit right. And there's occasional places with that song. The one that got me was when they did it with bagpipes. It was really well placed there. That was one where I thought if I'd seen that without the music, and this is where you can tell a really great great score. If I had seen that scene without the music, it wouldn't have been emotionally impacted, or at least not as much. That doing that song in bagpipes in that moment was brilliant. It was very, very good. Not all the rest of it is very, very good like that, but none of it is anything that doesn't fit. It still does its job. Jeanette says, I'll pass. I don't watch anything woke or with masks. It's totally woke. Totally woke. And the fan base is totally woke, and they're insane. Just an example of how crazy Star Trek Discovery is. They have a girl whose name escapes me, who's playing a non-binary character. This is a girl who's just out of her teens. We've seen her in other things. I'm sorry, you're mentally disturbed. She has had both of her breasts removed and wears clothing that makes it very, very androgynous. That sort of thing, combined with lots of crying in places where they shouldn't cry, coming off like not professional space explorers. Everything from 1966 to 2005 had professional space explorers. Bad stuff happened, and you deal with it. And if it's something that's emotional, you put it in your pocket until after you've gotten off the bridge, and then you let loose. You don't do it on the job. These are professionals, not Star Trek Discovery, not Star Trek Picard, not Star Trek Lower Decks, and I'm very afraid of what's going to happen with this new Nickelodeon series. We'll see. Drop of Truth says, one clever dig at Voyager by Mariner in Lower Decks this week was about why have a cook when you have replicators. I can't stand the Neelix character as a comic character. He sucked. I'm not that fond of Neelix myself. Nothing wrong with the actor. He's fine. It's just the way the character's written. I kind of agree with you on that. And Jeanette says that poor child about that girl. Yeah. Well, it's not girl. That it. She doesn't want to be, it doesn't want to be referred. It's they, them, and it, and stuff like that. Yeah, she's. I said it before. I'm reasonably good. In the past, I have a decently good track record for predicting when people who are famous that obviously have problems, when they might decide to end it all. It's happened before. I predict that this poor it will at some point end it all. To do that, you're way, way off. She should have had a psychologist or a therapist that said, no, I think you've got what we used to call gender dysphoria. We're not going to remove your breasts. Let's see. Drop 2 says, why has the U.S. AMA been pushing for children to get sex reassignment surgery without needing parents' permission? I've seen that in places. I have no freaking clue. Sex reassignment shouldn't happen until you're at least 18 if you're really into it. And something like this poor child, like you say, Jeanette, you don't play their game. Yeah. I'm calling it. She's at some point in the relatively near future. I say within the next 10 years, she's going to end it all. I don't like saying that, but I've been good at predicting this in the past. So, let's see. In terms of production design, this is where I started to peter out on this because I spent a lot of time working on it. And some of the roles here, some of the people says, again, it's all fans. We have the Starship interiors. It looks perfect, exactly like this. We have Rose Carter's home. As I said, that was where they were shooting on location in an actual park someplace with some kind of cabins that they had there, but that was okay. I mean, you can, if you're familiar, if you've gone, to one of these places like Custer State Park in South Dakota, that's really what it reminded me of a lot, was Custer State Park in South Dakota. Large park area with these cabins that are, around the park. And I have no problem with that. Again, fans. If you're gonna get nice exteriors, if you're gonna do location shooting, this is not something where you can get really. Sometimes you can get a permit if it's in a city or something like that. You can get a permit to go, but the permit costs money. If they're gonna do this, where they're doing some location shooting on John Carter's home planet, and it looks a lot like Earth. So doing it, I have no problem with that. It's fans doing this for fun. Okay, so I can tell because I've been in those things before what it is, but it's okay. It still looks great. And all the shooting and everything, they don't get the lighting wrong. That's also something that's very easy in fan films. You got your shooting set up. I'm gonna shoot for 4 days on this date, and I have to because they're gonna rent out this cabin to somebody else. So you got 4 days. And then it starts to rain on the day that you want to do the exterior shooting. Well, you can't shoot in the rain. So you, okay, well, cross my fingers that tomorrow isn't raining. Let's see if we could pick up some shots inside the cabin. But all of that didn't happen here. It's all very bright and sunny, and it looks good on location. Nothing wrong with it. Perfect. Shadow Man says, you've been rewatching the original series for grounding, and right there in episode 1, we hear from the logical Spock that Vulcan has no moons. And the reboot movie has Spock watching Vulcan destroyed from it, yes. And Star Trek The Motion Picture, there's 2 very large, what looks like large planets in Vulcan's sky. I don't know how far away they are, so I can't tell whether they qualify as a moon or not, but they're in the sky. So all of the stuff that they were doing here, again, no problem with it. Sometimes wonderful and never bad. That's one of the things you will notice. If it doesn't work, if it's too dark outside, if it's too sunny, if they haven't adjusted the camera lenses so that it looks good, none of that happens here. It all looks great. You cannot fault them for working on something, and I don't know that they did this, just looks like it. Working on something that looks like a state park someplace. Can't fault them. That's what they could get because they couldn't have the money to pay for it. Be one thing if you could had tons of money to go shoot on location. You go to Vasquez Rocks and shoot tons of money. They don't. They have what they could get for their funding off their GoFundMe or something. They got tens of thousands of dollars. That's one of the things. These things do not do themselves to look exactly like this. You're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, and They get tens of thousands of dollars in donations, and some of the principals donate a lot of money themselves. Dropper 2 says, during the current Sydney lockdown, there was a big budget Disney film shot there. Oh, right. One rule for them, another for the common folk. Yeah, resist everything woke. It's part of the reason I'm getting off of social media. If you go back and you watch the first part of the video where I'm talking about the addiction, they are part of 2 whole generations that became addicted via this dopamine cycle that I talk about there at a very early age. We've got 2 entire generations that are addicted to these social media platforms in a very bad way. They've showed up. I think being woke is part of it. So they showed up, and Dropper 2 says, you bought original series Blu-rays for yourself last Christmas. I know what I like. If I could afford it, I really honestly can't cost justify some of that stuff, but that's why we're going to the high seas, matey. I don't like doing that with shows I actually like, but I can't cost justify that stuff. I tell you, in all honesty. Bit of a side here, before I get to something about the costumes. Bit of an aside. I am not going to watch the crap that hack fraud Alex Kurtzman and his roving gang of character assassins is making. I'm just not going to watch it anymore. It sucks too much. The fan base is nothing but woke a-holes. You cannot have a civil conversation with them at all. And anyway, I'm getting out of social media. What I am going to do, because I do love the Orville, which it really more than anything else is capturing the spirit of Star Trek The Next Generation. I have paid a monthly payment. I took the second one that allows you to know commercials, because I hate having to watch those freaking things with commercials. So I took the $12.99 one, but I'm paying for Hulu because Hulu is producing the Orville. And I love the Orville. Most of the fans who loved Star Trek from 1965 to 2005 loved the Orville. So I'm paying them so that I can support the Orville. I will never pay a dime for anything that Alex Kurtzman and his gang of character assassins ever makes. And I advise everyone to do the same. If you must watch it, go to the high seas, matey, because that's where it is. Arrgh. Don't pay anything for it. I don't advocate piracy because that would be wrong. But I do say don't pay for the crap. It sucks. Try to get it out of business by causing Paramount Plus to say, okay, we got to do something different. People are tuning out of what should be our most valuable property. But go watch the Orville. Pay Hulu. Support them. Don't support Paramount Plus. They suck. Let's see. Oh, hey, Alexa. Hi. Great to see you tonight. Alexa Chipman. She does reactions. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate the background. Alexa is one of my favorite reactors. She is currently doing reactions to Star Trek, the animated series, in fact. Alexa, I have to apologize to you. I've been doing a lot of other things. I had a serious problem with my back about a month ago that I'm still getting over. I have not had time to watch all of your reactions. I will get to them. You will start to see my comments in there because I got a lot to say about them, as you know. I apologize, but Alexa is one of my favorite reactors. She's awesome. A lot of reactors just go out there and show their feelings, and that's fine. Alexa's a lot more intelligent about it. She has feelings, no question, but she also has a background that lets her look. Alexa's much younger than me. But given what she's seen, I would have to say that Alexa, like me, is a secret master of fandom, or her case, a secret mistress of fandom. She knows a lot, and she does very intelligent reactions. Certainly suggest her. After I'm done here, I'll put a link to her channel in below. But hey, great to see her, Alexa. Drop2 says, still waiting on Babylon 5, the Ultimate Collection. Arrives, sadly, in 480p. I'm going to be taking some of those and upscaling them, by the way. Also an Orville fan, Alexa says, yes, as I say, the Orville really very much is sort of duplicating the tone and look of Star Trek The Next Generation, pulling in fans like myself and Alexa. Drop2 says, the bad reviews for No Time to Die, I suspect, are being shadow banned on YouTube at the moment. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. I have no giant issue to see it. Alexa says, so sorry about my back. Glad that you're starting to feel better. Yeah, I'm an old man. And I had a problem with my sciatic nerve, and it screwed up my lower back where I have arthritis already. Sitting in this chair for as long as I have is starting to make it hurt, and I did it earlier today because I just finished a very long review, or I'm about to finish a very long review, where I get into a lot of detail. So I had to spend several hours on that. It's interesting to me because in my 40-year IT career, what did I do most of the time? Sit. If I was still able to work, I wouldn't be able to sit. I don't know how I'd do my job. Let's see. Alexa says, I am so sorry about my... Oh, I'm sorry. You already said that. Anyway, Starship Farragut Homecoming, almost near the end, getting into the costumes. Again, they have done an extraordinary job of replicating Star Trek, the original series costumes. An extraordinary job. Because I know these things. I've watched this show for over 50 years. And I know every last freaking detail about those costumes. I can tell you everything that you ever wanted to know about those costumes. And when I look at them, they're perfect. They're just exactly perfect. It's wonderful. And with Smithfield, the engineer, you got to see something in Star Trek that we didn't see. You only saw like twice in passing. And that's a tunic and pants uniform for women. It actually happened in the original series. They did have some, but I think the only places you see it are, when like Red Alert, and suddenly somebody goes past, some girl goes past, you go, whoa, she was wearing pants and a shirt. So Smithfield, being this sort of engineer who's always like getting into things and getting her hand dirty, she's wearing a tunic and pants outfit. So I really like that. They also have Starfleet jackets. You saw these really at the beginning of the series, in fact. The jackets are very cool. They're black, and, it's fans. It's all fans. Not all of them are in pristine physical condition. Most of them are better than me. But the problem is when you get somebody who's not just got a perfect physique, and you put them in those Star Trek, the original series uniforms, they don't look good. It's why you won't see me wearing one in public. At one time, I was svelte, and my mother-in-law made me two costumes, an original series tunic and a Star Trek The Next Generation jumpsuit. A, I couldn't put them on, but B, even if I could, I wouldn't go in those because I would be that guy who looks kind of fat. But these jacket uniforms that we've seen off and on throughout this series are great. They're black, so it doesn't matter. It's kind of slimming. I'd like to get one. Guys at Starship Farragut, please feel free to send me one of those. Alexis says, I remember that when they looked super comfortable. Are you talking about the Starfleet jackets? Yeah, they're great. I mean, you didn't ever see them in Star Trek, the original series. But this is something they've been with all throughout, and they look great. Captain Carter is wearing one of them at the very end, and when they're in this travel pod, so it's great. Wonderful. The pants uniform. You're talking about the tunic and pants. Yes, yeah. I mean, it's obviously a much more utilitarian uniform for women than those short mini dresses. So it's nice to see that, and if you catch them just running past in the background in the original series, it catches my eye because I go, wait a minute, that woman has pants. So, yeah, and they're better uniforms, even if you're not, because the woman who plays Smithfield, again, she's probably in her 40s when this was shot, and she's not in bad shape, but she would look terrible in a mini dress, which is why they gave her this costume, and it it has a slimming effect for her because of what it is. Lexa says, yes, gold turtleneck with the pants. Yeah, these aren't actually turtlenecks exactly. It doesn't go like this. This is if you took the top of one of those mini dress uniforms, because it's still got the collar that comes down here and then goes back up. But again, that's what you saw actually in somebody in the background in Star Trek, the original series, a woman wearing that. But it's still good. It's still much better if you're not perfectly svelte. Because you can't look good in one of those. I always say the camera adds 10 pounds, right? So if you're looking at me, I probably look worse than I actually am in real life. If you're watching Star Trek and you see somebody who looks svelte in those mini dress uniforms, they're probably about 10 pounds underweight. So you have to look perfect getting one of those uniforms. So getting this for her, again, a fan, doing this for the love of what she wants to do. Let's not have her look awful. Let's put her in a tunic and pants so it looks great. Alexa said there's one of the yeomen in the foreground in it as well. I'm sure. They use it from time to time. I actually started working on a video called Women in Pants, where I clipped all the different scenes together. Oh, cool. That's awesome. As I said, Alexa's pretty damn smart. Much more intelligent reactor than most. Actually, more intelligent than any of them I've ever seen, actually. So... anyhow, that was great. Then we have the makeup. Again, really, this one you're dealing with nothing but basically humanoids in this episode. So, okay, the makeup looks good for what they've got. It also recreates to some extent, hairstyles and makeup that you would have seen in Star Trek, the original series. It doesn't get into those crazy buns and stuff that some of the characters had. But if you look at the men, sitting there with a part, pointed sideburns, and, the makeup for that looks fine. No problem at all with the makeup. And again, we have to, this is a fan. They're all fans doing this. This is not anybody getting paid. They will never get paid. They do this for the love of it. At the end of any review, we have to ask ourselves, is it any good? Well, I give this 8 out of 10 fan film stars because there is a slightly different scale for fan films because you have to make allowances sometimes, not in this episode, not on this show. Sometimes make allowances because they don't have the money for this or that or the other thing. But here we give it an 8 out of 10, and the only reason it's an 8 is because Star Trek Continues raised the bar way up here. Star Trek Continues is a professional looking in every way. And not that this wasn't professional looking, don't get me wrong, but it set the bar so high that, anything else is going to be lower by comparison. But again, with most of these fan films, even not taking into account the fact that it's fans, they're not professional actors, they're not professional at anything they do, they're wearing 10 different hats, and still coming up with something that looks perfectly exactly like Star Trek the original series, and trust me, it does. It's like, okay, well, it's why Paramount CBS came out with their fan film guidelines. It's because some of these shows look so similar to their product that they don't want them made anymore. One thing about this, because there was so long between the last episode and this one, it's coming back to these characters because I've watched all those episodes and they're pretty good for the most part. It's a little like putting on your favorite sweater that you just found sitting in a box. It is oh, these characters again. I like these guys. And I never thought I'd see them again. After the fan film guidelines, I thought, okay, well, they're done. But here's something where they did principal photography before the fan film guidelines, so they're able to put it out. It's especially good for me because I don't like what Star Trek is being produced right now by Alex Kurtzman and his gang of character assassins. So watching something like this where everybody gets what Star Trek is about and their characters that I've seen and liked, and oh, by God, they're coming back after so many years. It's great. I just have to say, Alex Kurtzman, sorry, buddy, but it's not about, Star Trek is not about a bunch of whiny children in a near apocalyptic future. It's not about flashy visual effects. And it's not even so much about acting, because watching some of this, not the greatest performances in some places, but you give it to them because, by God, it's fans doing what they love. And they get it. They totally understand. It is totally about a certain spirit of the future where, it is professional space explorers and having interesting relationships. And so Alex Kurtzman and your roving gang of character assassins, watch this show. You will learn a lot about what Star Trek really is. Okay, let me get back to see if I can find my card for this one. It's so far down the... Oh, yeah. Did you watch the episode, Alexa? Just out of curiosity. If you didn't, there's a cameo in there that's going to blow your fracking mind. Let me see if I can get to... Well, I guess it's this one. Yeah. Lower Decks and Foundation. I'm going to talk about just a little bit. I did not watch this episode of Lower Decks, as I said earlier, because of all of the horrible stuff that was happening on social media with these woke viewers. Just being crazy, insane about coming after me. And my knowing about this dopamine cycle addiction and coming to the conclusion I'm not going to do social media anymore. At the same time, I said, I'm not going to do Kurtzman's Star Trek anymore. I'm just not. And part of that, again, is because of what happened this last week after the last episode had gratuitous sex and some gratuitous S&M in the background and foreground. The one that was going around, the meme was going around, was Boimler naked with a black spot where, in the front. It was so stupid. And then the fans of that thing, as I said, they take criticism of what they like, not as criticism of what they like and not something about them personally. They take it as a personal attack when you say anything negative about something they like. And they were all over me. And after that, I said, this show hasn't been that good to start with. Screw it. I'm out. I'm gone. I'm never going to watch that show again. Shadowman says, I want people to start making the Orville fan films because Seth is allowing it. Is he? That'd be cool. Yeah. At this stage of the game, that'd be great. So anyway, I'm not doing it. Just not doing it. Don't like it to begin with, Kurtzman, but last week with the insane attack and piling on of your fans, nope. Not going to do it anymore. Ain't gonna do it. Wouldn't be prudent at all. Alexa says, hi, you're heading out soon. Well, I'm about to be done with some stuff, but intriguing hearing about original series and some of the costuming, yeah. Okay, the other thing that I want to talk about, reactions to Orville fan films. Yeah. Well, any fan films. If I do reviews from now on, it's going to be fan films, because there's so many of them. Feel free to react to any of them, Alexa. Star Trek continues, if you haven't seen it. Probably have. Alexa's seen too much. The other thing I want to talk about is Foundation. Oh, God. This is now Foundation in name only. There is so much in here that never was in the books. I totally get that when you're dealing with particularly the first book, which was, novellas, and, you have a period of time here with Harry Seldon, then you jump forward 30 or 40 years, and then you jump forward again in the next novella. I get where that's really difficult to make. But this is all stuff that was never in the books. It is using some character names, and that's about all. It is not really Isaac Asimov's Foundation. And I just can't figure out why you've gone this far astray. I understand it's hard to make stuff like that. I get it. But surely there must have been something you could have done that was actually like the books. I'm not finished with it. I'm not going to not watch it because it is it's very beautiful. It's well done. It's not really Foundation, guys. If you're interested in Foundation, what it really is, go read the books. I don't think we're going to get it out of this. I think my secret master of fandom prediction is, again, this is going to be more about robots that weren't attached to this particular series until much, like 10 novels later. So, the other thing we can talk about, Alexa, you might like some of this, is what is in the Tales from SYL Ranch Darkroom, my second channel this week. This week in the Tales from SYL Ranch Oops, sorry. God, I'm on the wrong I keep hitting the wrong buttons. Sorry. It's good night for me. I need like a producer who can do all this for me. We have from the Superman Fleischer cartoons of the 1940s. We have Superman episode 14, The Mummy Strikes, which I have upscaled to 1440p and 48 frames per second. As you know, if you've been watching these, the first one that I was able to upscale to 4K and 48 frames per second is a beautiful print. Just an absolute beautiful print. The rest of them are not that beautiful, but because they were doing full animation at 24 frames per second, it still looks very good when it's scaled up. Now, I mentioned a few weeks ago that you might notice, because I'm releasing one of these every week that's upscaled, you may notice that after a while, because they switched production companies from Fleischer Studios, which did enormous, great work, to Famous Studios, which was a direct subsidiary of Paramount when they took over. There's a point at which you say to yourself, these are not as good as the first ones that were coming out. I think you can point to this one and say that. Tell me in the comments of that video if I'm wrong. But to me, it's one of those ones you see. Look back at the first episode and you go, I mean, they're not bad. This Mummy Strikes isn't bad. They never get bad. But you look at it and you go, man, this one was better. You know, it was just better made. Well, better made. So that's in the darkroom. I've also got sitting on my desk here. I have to get it upscaled to 60 frames per second, but I'm going to release it shortly. There is a long trailer for the Matrix Resurrections, a international edition, and I'm upscaling that. I've got the 4K upscale done. It looks very good. But I'm about to do the 60 frames per second probably after I'm done here. I'll start it out and let it run all night. But I'm going to put that up fairly shortly. There's a couple of other cute things that I'm going to put up still probably this week. And if you're not familiar with that channel, and Alexa might not be, it's experimental stuff. Mostly so far, what I've done is taken known scenes or like these Superman cartoons, and what I've done is upscaled them all the way to 4K in most instances. So it starts out at like 1080p or 720p, but the print's really good. It'll upscale and look wonderful. And then I take the frame rate, and where it's often at 24 frames per second, because that's normal for shooting movies and TV, I've reinterpolated the frame rate to be 48 frames per second. It's almost always double what the original was. So I've got this Matrix Resurrections trailer, and it was originally 30 frames per second. So I'll upscale it to I'll reinterpolate to 60 frames per second when it's done. So that's kind of what I'm doing on that channel. You'll see clips, you'll see whole cartoons that they're in the public domain, like that one is. There's several clips I've got in there that, if that channel is ever monetizable, and it never will be, probably like this one. If it's ever monetizable, I won't get money for those, because some of the scenes, like the one I did last week, that stupid late night where they had the Vax scene, that just cringe-inducing thing. Well, guess what? That belongs to the network. It doesn't belong to me, so I'm never going to be able to make money off it. But I don't care. I did it for fun, and I'm doing all of this for fun. Shadow Man says, if Foundation is not following the books, then it isn't Foundation. Simple as that. Yeah. It ain't. So, let's see what we got for time here. It is 11:18. My back is killing me. Oh, man, I know what I did to screw it up, too. But it'll be fine by tomorrow. That's what happened last week, too, and I was 3 hours in the chair then. So I think I'm probably going to cut it off there. I suppose that would be all that I have to say about that. I would love to keep this conversation going, so please do comment, question, and leave your nasty remarks. I will do my best to respond to you. And of course, do not like, but do sub, do hit the notification bell, but don't bother sharing me on social media, because if you need to leave social media if you want to save Western civilization. So thanks for watching this episode of Tales from SYL Ranch, and I'm Bill Stone.
Ultimate power in this world has always been one simple thing: the control and manipulation of minds.